Now, Bronwyn, when I saw this story, I thought, I can't wait to talk to Bronwyn about this tonight, which is, in New Zealand, the former president of, I think, the Young Socialists League or whatever she was, Jacinda Ardern, is now talking about a 4-day work week. This is what she said today in New Zealand.
Ultimately, that really sits between employers and employees, but as I've said, there's lots of things we've learnt about COVID and just that flexibility of people working from home, the productivity that can be driven out of that, really encourage people to think about, if they're an employer and in a position to do so, to think about whether or not that is something that would work for their workplace, because it certainly would help tourism all around the country.
Paul, stupid socialist ideas from other countries don't impact on us at all. What else stupid ideas would you think she'd come up with? But I would also like to comment on the question of the decision that's come down with regard to casuals. All this will do will send many more people bankrupt, and the government has a responsibility to support small business and indeed to praise patriotic people like Gina Rinehart. What we've got to see is that the government indeed has to introduce legislation to ensure that the established distinction between a permanent employee and a casual employee continues to be the case. That the decision that has come down completely negates the concept that there is compensation paid in lieu of foregoing things such as annual leave and sick leave. And that decision says you can have both. Well, you can't. And the way our society works and the way our workforces work is that you do have that distinction, and that has to be put back in place. And the only way it can be done is by legislation. And the idiotic comments of Mr. Burke, I think, only show, as Michael correctly said, that he's just out of touch with what happens in the real world.
Yeah, under 94A, I suggest we never hear from him again. It was always my favourite. My favourite of your rejections was his. Let's talk about... Now, by the way, yes, Jacinda Ardern was elected, and I've got to get the title right here, President of the International Union of Socialist Youth.
Absolutely.
A gig there. So just next time...
You've got to give me a go on this one, don't you, Paul?
Come on. Please, please, the 4-day work week. You're all in for that as a university professor, aren't you?
I mean, let's not forget that New Zealand has long been the social laboratory for progressive reform. It was the first country in the world to give women the vote. It was the first country in the world to give older folks the pension. And now with this idea, it could be the first country in the world to give us the 4-day working week. And what's so bad about that? I mean, if we were sitting here 100 years ago, Bronwyn would be arguing against the weekend. You know, when the unions were trying to give people 2 days off a week, she'd be saying that's socialism. Say no to the weekend, she'd be telling us.
Calm down, Nicholas. I've told you before, it's most important that you think before you speak, because sometimes you speak such rubbish, like you just did then, that really you do yourself no favours.
There's a growing body of evidence that shows that working 4 days a week improves productivity, makes people happier.
Where's the growing body of evidence,
health,
Nicholas?
good for their physical health, and ultimately that's good for the bottom line of a company. In fact,
where is this body of evidence?
Well, there's quite a large number of New Zealand businesses. There's quite a large number of New Zealand businesses coming out today welcoming this move. Prominent New Zealand business people work. Improves productivity, good for mental health, good physical health.
Yeah.
Okay. Bronny's doing
You'd
a
be fighting against the weekend as well,
when Margaret Thatcher wanted to know who are those people? Who are those people, Nick? There's no body of evidence. But what another particularly ridiculous idea. Work 4 days, I get paid 5 days, I work 4 days, well, that'll be good in the current economic crisis, and you're saying people are happier. Of course they're happier, mate. They're only working 4 days a week.
But I love
why not just get paid for doing nothing?
But again, if it's a lefty idea that comes out of New Zealand, we should do it. But a 15% GST, no. Banning foreigners from purchasing property, no. Cutting immigration, no. So it's only and those, by the way, are all policies of the current Queen Ardern government. Yeah. Anyway, the price of
I'll say it again. If we're all sitting here 100 years ago, you are the type of people who would have been arguing against the weekend.